I love coming home because I get to see so many familiar faces. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night and coming to the town hall. And I have to apologize, I'm in blue jeans. We came straight from the airport, so we didn't have to drive in traffic all the way to Rome and then back here. So I'm putting the blame on Travis. He wouldn't let me go home and change. Just kidding. So I want to start out by telling you guys one of my favorite stories in Congress. And I know this story two ways. The first time I learned about this was probably the same time you all saw it. And it was before I became a member of Congress, and I watched it happen on the news. And this was during the COVID shutdown in 2020. And I watched Congressman Thomas Massie from Kentucky go into the Capitol because they were going to pass a bill. They were going to pass the CARES Act. And it was a massive spending bill because of COVID. I don't know if you guys remember that. I'm sure you do. Well, Thomas Massie made the news because everybody was mad at him. And the first person I saw mad at him was President Trump. And President Trump was tweeting out at Thomas Massie, and then many others were attacking Thomas Massie. Everybody was mad at him, but Thomas Massie was going to the Capitol to force Congress to protect the Constitution and do the right thing and actually vote on the bill instead of just allowing it to pass without voting. And I remember being amazed at his courage. I found it to be the most refreshing thing I had seen. Well, when I got to Congress and I got to meet Thomas Massie and get to know him, I wanted to know about that story. And so I learned about the story another way, and I got to hear Thomas Massie tell the story. And it is literally my favorite story. I'm like a little kid. I love it when he tells the story. I will sit down and listen as if it's the first time I've heard it. So Thomas Massie, if you know much about him, he is the most fiscally conservative member of Congress. And he is a very strong conservative. He's a constitutionalist. He calls himself more of a libertarian than a Republican. And he's a great defender of our freedoms. And so I really enjoy his friendship. I always enjoy his advice. He has 2 degrees from MIT. I don't know if you guys know that. So he's someone I listen to a lot. So when he told me the story, it was completely different than it looked on the news. Everyone tried to stop him. Everyone. He got phone calls from all of his friends, got phone calls from constituents, got phone calls from President Trump more times than he wanted, telling him to just let it pass. Everyone was telling him, just let it pass, Thomas. Don't try to stop. Don't try to force the vote. But here's what Thomas did. He bravely went against everyone there under all the pressure he was under. The press was asking him every single minute. He tells, the story's hilarious. He talks about sleeping in his truck because it was COVID and things were really weird. He has all these great stories that he tells about it. But he decided that the Constitution was worth protecting, and that just because there was a pandemic, it didn't mean that you suspended the Constitution in order to just allow a massive spending bill to pass. He forced Congress to vote. And I've always respected him for that. I really have. And so this week, when I went to Washington, I was pretty upset when I flew into Washington. Number one, we'd already passed a bill that I really liked, the Limit Save Grow Act. I was really happy with that because it cut nearly $5 trillion in spending in order to raise the debt ceiling. And our whole conference had gotten behind it, and we fought for it. Now, I don't know if you guys understand the numbers. We have 222 Republicans in Congress out of 435. So we barely control half of the House. And the House is only 1/3 of the federal government. You've got the Senate and the White House. In order for anything to be signed into law, you have to have all 3. Now, on top of that, I don't know if, I'm sure a bunch of you in here have children. You know how hard it is to get your kids to agree on what they want to eat for dinner? And then maybe your wife chimes in and she doesn't want that at all? Well, let me tell you, when you put our 222 Republican members of Congress in a room and try to get us all to agree on something, it is really, really hard. But then you compile on top of that the fact that we have to get what we agreed on past the Senate and the White House that is the opposite political party from us. Let me tell you, it is next to impossible. And that is the situation that we're in. So when I had to go up to Washington this week to find out that there had been a deal made to raise the debt ceiling, I was pretty mad about it. And here's why I'm mad. I have virtually the same voting record as Thomas Massie. I do, because I believe in fiscal responsibility. I'm conservative, and I don't like the spending that happens in Washington. As a matter of fact, I don't like most things that happen in Washington. I'm not a big fan, and I'm pretty honest about that. So when I had to go up there to find out that there had been a deal that had been made and it wasn't the deal that we had worked on, I was pretty angry. And I walked into the Capitol and I was heading into Kevin McCarthy's office, and I was going in to tell him, and please forgive me my language on this, I was calling this bill a shit sandwich, okay? Because that was a phrase, it's a phrase I grew up with. When you don't like something and you don't want to have to deal with it, that's what it is. It's a shit sandwich. And no matter which way you turn it, you don't want to eat it because you don't like what's in it. It's a bad deal. So I walked in there to talk with him about it. And when I was walking in his office, of course the press was all out there. You guys wouldn't believe the press. I am actually the most impressed. They are the hardest working people in this country. They will track you down, they will find you, and they'll ask you questions. So God bless them. But anyway, so they're all out there outside of his office, of course. And they wanted to know what I was up to, of course. So they asked me, and I told them, and it was reported, I think, in The Hill and made the news other places. I was upset, so I said, yeah, I'm walking in here, this whole thing is a shit sandwich. That's what I said. I told them that. And I said, what I'm looking for as I'm going in our speaker's office is if I have to eat this thing, I want some sides. You know? Like my plate looks really bad right now. I want some sides because this is going to go a lot better for me if I have some sides. And I'm a dessert girl. I want some dessert. And they were like, ooh, what are you looking for? Because that was like drama to them. They wanted to know, what is she talking about? And I said, yeah, I've got a few ideas. Here's my ideas. I've never gone in that office asking for things, but I'm going in this time. Here's the sides I want. I said I want two sides. Number one, I want a plan to do something. This bill doesn't do what we wanted it to do with the 87,000 IRS agents. We need a better plan. And I said, from my understanding of the bill, it only takes away the funding for 2023. It wipes it out, the $1.4 billion that they had appropriated to hire these IRS agents. I said, I'm a small business owner. Most of the businesses in my district are small businesses, contractors, people that work for themselves. They don't want to be audited. They don't want headaches. We don't want to see the Tea Party audits again. We've been through that with Lois Lerner. We don't want a weaponized IRS simply because we're conservative. I said, I want to talk to everyone in the office. We need a better plan. So that's one side. The other side I asked for is something I've always wanted. I want a balanced budget. And I tell you why I want a balanced budget. I want a balanced budget because I've been a business owner for 25 years. And I know the same thing that you all know, that if you can't balance your checkbook, if you are not making a revenue or a savings, that your business will go out of business. And that was the whole reason why we're in Washington this week. Because the federal government as a business is going out of business. And that's upsetting to me. So I said two sides. We gotta do something about the IRS Army. I want a balanced budget. And then I said I want dessert. I'm a dessert girl. Love dessert. I love all kinds of dessert. And they said, well, what are you wanting? And I said, okay, I'm going to be very bluntly honest. I said, the American people are so sick and tired of looking at Washington and looking at the corruption and looking at the wrongdoing, looking at the abuse of power, watching politicians make magically hundreds of millions of dollars in their political career, even though we have very visible taxpayer-funded paychecks that do not pay that much money. They watch it and watch it and watch it, and they're so tired of it. We watch the Durham report come out. We're doing these oversight hearings where we are uncovering unbelievable things. We watch all these things happen. No one's ever held accountable. No one goes to jail. I said, my dessert that I want is I want someone held accountable. I want impeachment. And I think that's okay. And I'll tell you why I like impeachment. I'm a business owner. Firing people when they're doing a bad job, they're stealing money from you, they're corrupt, they're ruining your company, they're screwing the customers over. You fire them. That is normal. Impeachment should not be controversial. It's the tool that the founding fathers gave us in the Constitution to fire people. We've seen people fired before. My goodness, in my lifetime, we saw Bill Clinton. The House fired him, they impeached him for lying to Congress about a sexual favor with an intern. Then we saw President Trump, he got impeached twice. Man, Nancy Pelosi, she gets things done, doesn't she? Republicans could probably take a page out of her playbook. So we've seen impeachment. We've seen it. They tried to impeach Nixon too. He resigned. That was back when people actually resigned. We should have more of that, but we don't. I said, I want dessert, I want impeachment. So these are the things I went in talking about because I didn't want to eat the shit sandwich. So after I went in, made all my requests and my ask and had some discussions, I walked out of there, and you know who I bumped into? Thomas Massie. I said, Thomas, what in the world is this bill? I don't fully understand it. We were talking about it. I said, here's what I've read. Here's these parts. So he said, come on, let's go get something to eat. I said, great. I don't want to eat the shit sandwich. Let's go find something better. So we went, and we sat down, and Thomas explained to me a plan that he'd been talking about for a while. It's actually, it's amazing. And it's the plan to deal with appropriations. And I don't know if you guys heard me say it before, but I've been saying it a lot. I've been saying it since we took the House and we took over in January. For me, the fight has always been with the budget and appropriations. Because when you only control the House has a very important job. The House creates the budget. The House controls the purse string. The House has the checkbook for the taxpayers. The House funds all federal programs. It's a very important job. It's a responsible job, but it's a powerful job. It can be abused, as it has been for decades, which has led us to where we're almost $32 trillion in debt, or it can be handled well, and we can have a balanced budget, and we can do things right. Appropriations is the one that I've been focused on because that's the place where I know. See, you write a budget and you say it's going to be this much money for this program, this much money for this program, and it goes on and on and on. But appropriations are the separate bills that actually write the checks, okay? That's when the money goes out. Appropriations is the only power Republicans have in Washington, D.C. So I've been saying I want to fight on appropriations. I'll go to the mat on appropriations. So Thomas and he said, let me tell you about my plan. I was like, all right. He said, my plan that I've got in this bill that just passed, is we will be required to pass 12 separate appropriation bills. Now, usually how it goes down in Washington is they have some dirty tricks. It goes like this. It's supposed to be 12 appropriation bills, but they cram them all together in a big omnibus. You guys have seen this. We've all seen this before. We watched it happen under President Trump. We watched it happen under Obama. We watched it happen under Bush. It is the oldest trick in the book in Washington, D.C. They cram all the appropriation bills together. There'll be some good appropriation bills that conservatives like me go, oh yeah, I want to vote for that. Then there'll be some horrible appropriation bills where they're funding some never-ending war or they're funding terrible stuff that none of us want to pay for. And they pack them all together in one big package called an omnibus, And then they force members of Congress to vote on it one way, up or down, yes or no. That's it. You get one vote for all 12. And then what they do is they put a pressure campaign on it. They push it back and push it back and push it back to where they go, oh no, we're running into a government shutdown. Oh, how scary it is. Oh no, people aren't going to get their paycheck. Border Patrol agents aren't going to get paid. Social Security checks aren't going to go out. And they put a pressure campaign on members of Congress. Both parties do this because apparently it's worked really, really well. And then they push it all the way back, and it's usually around Christmas Eve. And you'll see Congress trapped in Washington, D.C. And it's all over the news, and the press is running all around. How are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? Are you going to vote for it? Are you going to vote for it? You get asked a million times, what do you think about the bill? What do you think? And they put this pressure, and members of Congress, they're human, they get tired, they want to be at home, and all this pressure comes on them, and the press is on them, and they're getting phone calls, and they have this pressure, and then they cave. We've seen it happen a million times, and that's how these big omnibuses pass, and that's why here we are, everybody, nearly $32 trillion in debt. Thomas Massie's plan, called the Penny Plan, the Massey Penny Plan, what it does is it forces us to pass these appropriation bills, 12 separate appropriation bills. That's how it should be. So if you like one, you can say, yes, green button, I vote for that. If you don't like another one, no, I don't want to vote for that red button, which I think is fantastic. Here's the other part. Now, let's get real. This is where I'm going to talk to you about how difficult it is to get an agreement on anything in Washington, D.C. We have a teeny tiny, very slim majority. And our Republican Party is about as diverse as it comes in ideology. I'll say it this way. We've got people so far over here to the right, they might be called Marjorie Taylor Greene. We got people so far over here to the left that we go, are you really a Republican? I don't think so. Okay, so that's how hard it is. And then we all fight with each other about what we think we ought to do. Well, with a very thin majority, listen, it takes 218 of us to pass a bill. So you can see how hard this is going to be to pass 12 separate appropriation bills, which guess what? It's totally fine with me. I'm fine with that. Again, like I told you all, I'm willing to go to the mat and fight for these things. You want to know why? I didn't vote not one penny. Me and Thomas Massie are the only members of Congress that didn't vote to fund a single penny to kill people over in Ukraine in a war. I don't think that's where American tax dollars belong. Again, we're nearly $32 trillion in debt, and our border is invaded every single day. And we have people dying, 300 a day from fentanyl poisoning. We have a mental health crisis. We've got a homelessness crisis. We've got really bad problems here. These are the people I care about. I care about our businesses. We have a lot to do at home. So I won't fund Ukraine. By the way, Lindsey Graham is fuming, if you didn't know it. He's really upset. We didn't fund Ukraine in this bill.
Traitor too.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the good news. We have to fight out these 12 appropriation bills. Well, what does that mean? Oh no, the government's going to shut down. Here comes the fear again. With Massey's plan, this is what I love in this bill. We pass a CR. It's called a continuing resolution to fund the government. That takes away the pressure campaign, takes away the shutdown fear. You know what that does? That says, yeah, senior citizens are getting their social security checks. They should get them. You paid into the system all this time. You know what that says? Veterans, yes, they're going to get their benefits. You know what else that says? Police officers, Border Patrol agents. Important people in our government are going to get paid, and citizens are going to get their benefits. That's what the 99% funding does. Here's what it does too, though. It cuts funding 1%. This is where Massey's so smart. He's like, oh yeah, we'll fund the government with a CR, but we're going to give them an automatic 1% cut, which is a savings for the American people. So it's a really good trick. That one has the Democrat minority leader on appropriations really upset. She has been complaining nonstop about this piece of this budget. You want to know why? They don't want any cut in spending. No. This has been our argument. Republicans are saying we have a spending problem in Washington. Spending problem. Democrats are saying, no, we have a revenue problem. They want to raise taxes. We're like, no, we want to cut spending and reduce the size of the government because the government is the biggest problem in everyone's lives. We want to make it smaller. So when we were talking about this debt ceiling bill, Thomas Massey, who I said, I don't think I'm going to vote for this thing. He goes, I think I'm going to vote for it. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, I want to get this. We need a new trick. We need a new tool. This has never been done before. As a matter of fact, I gave you guys a handout tonight, and it shows you on your handout how many times they raised the debt ceiling in the past few years. Just tons of times. And you got nothing for it. It was clean debt ceiling raises. Clean ones. This plan, for the first time, there's a $1.5 trillion savings with a debt ceiling increase. $1.5 trillion. That was something Thomas Massey, and then we had a third person join us, Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is also somebody I respect. Then Thomas Massey and Jim Jordan told me their stories. Marjorie, we have had to raise the debt ceiling so many times. You're looking at it on this piece of paper. We have never gotten anything for it. This is our one chance. It's not the bill we had, but this is our one chance to get some savings in spending, $1.5 trillion, and a tool in our toolbox when we go to war on appropriations. That is what made me vote for this bill. That's what made me say, okay, this shit sandwich is something that I can look at differently, because remember what I told you, I also want sides and dessert. And those things I'm still working on. And I think I'm going to get to some dessert. I'm glad to tell you that.
We love dessert.
We love dessert. So then things got interesting. We have to, there's a process, there's a rules process. We had multiple votes. When you go to the House floor, that's when everybody's there. So remember when you're in high school and you have lunch and you go in the cafeteria and everybody's there, so you see everybody you know, because you may not have classes with all your friends, but you see them in cafeteria for lunch. That's what voting is like. All the members of Congress are there. And so there's a lot of conversations happening because of this bill. So I find out, talking to people, that there was a deal that had already been made. You see, a few weeks ago, the Democrats, Joe Biden and the Democrats, they wanted a clean debt ceiling raise, a clean one, so that they could just keep spending. And the Democrats in the House, they have 213. They signed something called a discharge petition. If they could get 218 members of Congress to sign the discharge petition, they could pull out their bill that was a clean debt ceiling raise, force it to the floor for a vote, and pass it with 218 votes. They have 213. So when I was on the House floor, I found out that some of our Republicans, remember, we've got small numbers, we got 222. Some of our Republicans went and made a deal with the Democrats and said, if they don't pass this bill to handle the issue, we're going to sign the discharge petition and give you 218 and we'll get it passed. And Chuck Schumer over in the Senate already had the votes to pass the clean debt ceiling bill. And Lindsey Graham was already drumming up a plan to add a Ukraine supplemental funding bill on there. And then if that had come back to the House, let me tell you, that would have passed easily. So that was the other little piece of the puzzle that I didn't like. Because here's something I know. I remember very, very clearly in 2011, my dad was so upset. He was so upset because bonds had been downgraded. Do you guys remember that? And he owned bonds. And he couldn't believe that our government was such a failure that we actually saw our bonds go down and be downgraded. He was shocked. He was like, he couldn't believe it. And then as a business owner, I've thought about how many times in a construction company, we had to ride the roller coaster with the economy. If the economy's doing good, if banks were lending money, our business was doing good. If the economy was doing bad because of stupid people in Washington were making bad decisions, inflation was high, banks weren't lending money, we were suffering. We were barely making it. And I thought about that, and I thought about how many other people go through this. And then I thought about, what does it mean to default? Number one, biblically, you are supposed to be responsible. If you are in debt, you have to pay your debts. That is responsibility. It's biblical. And I thought about that. And I thought about, what does it mean to people who are on the verge of retirement? They saved and saved and saved, and here inflation is killing them, and they have this nest egg and they're about to retire, and if we default, what will it do to their retirement? What does it do to 401ks? What does it do to people's stocks? What will it do to our country? We're already going down the tubes. Our dollar is soon to be pushed to the side. We're soon to not have the world currency. That's where we are, and I thought about that. And so let me tell you guys something. I could have done the politically easiest thing in the world. Easiest thing in the world was for me to say, I'm not voting for this. You know what I could have done? I could have played politics. I could have said, no, I'm not voting for this. I could have attacked leadership. I could have tweeted about it. I could have done interviews. And then I could have sent all of you a bunch of fundraising emails. I could have done that. But I didn't. You know what I did? I got together with Thomas Massey and Jim Jordan. I said, guys, I want to do what you're going to do because I trust both of you. You guys are the two strongest conservatives. You've been here longer than me. Thomas, I trust you. You have a good plan, and I really want to try it out. I want to see something new in Washington. So I chose to do the difficult thing. I did. You want to know how I did that? I did that because I like to sleep at night. I did that because I've been a mom. I've raised 3 kids. And it's not always easy. You don't tell your children yes all the time. As a matter of fact, it's important to say no. I did it because I know how to run a company and make hard decisions for your company and for your employees to serve your customer and do the right thing. So I've been doing this all my adult life. And I decided, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and throw red meat because that's what people want to hear. I'm going to really think about this and consider this decision, and I'm going to do the right thing. And so that's what I did. I chose the hard thing, the one that got trashed and trashed and trashed. But I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with it because I'm here to tell you the story. I'm really happy I walked out of Washington today, and I came back to Georgia knowing that we have a tool in our toolkit. So when we get to appropriations, I cannot wait to fight with everybody. I can't wait because it's about your money. And here's the good news. It's up to Republicans how much we spend. That's our job. And I think it's our duty. It's our duty to make sure that we spend it correctly. There were cuts made in this, and here's something else you can know. The only cuts were made was out of 11% of the non-discretionary spending. 11%. So it didn't touch military, it didn't touch Social Security, it didn't touch Medicaid, Medicare benefits, things like that. One of the things I liked, and this was actually Kevin McCarthy's idea, and I thought this was smart. You know how we have a lot of people that are hurting in America? He kept foster care kids in there. The ones that age out at 18 and they don't have a home anymore, and many of them are homeless. They're usually on the streets. They are usually homeless. He kept them in till age 24. I don't know if you heard that on the news. So anybody that thinks Republicans don't have a heart, let me tell you, we have a heart. We want the right things for people. There are times we really want to take care of people, and then there's times where we want work requirements, where we say, hey, if you don't have any dependents and you're sitting on the sofa taking a government check, you know what? There's a lot of companies hiring. We need you to go get a job. So we did that in this way. Now, again, this bill is not perfect. We have more work to do. We really do. We have more work to do. As a matter of fact, we have so much work to do, I don't know why we go home. We should stay there. Let me tell you some other things that are happening. Just this week, finally, there's some people that got to see the January 6th videotapes. They've actually been viewing them for the past couple of weeks, but we got to announce it. John Solomon, I don't know if you saw it, but it was on, I believe it was last night. It'll be on again tonight and tomorrow night. He is releasing a lot of video footage. Julie Kelly, if you follow Julie Kelly, if you don't know who she is, this might be a reason to get Twitter. I know most of you don't have Twitter, but she's on Twitter. She has followed every single case in the courts. She's releasing video footage. And then there's one more outlet I can't name because they asked not to. They got a big surprise coming. They're making a documentary, and that one's going to be coming out soon. So we're working on that happening. There's more outlets wanting information. I'll tell you some more things that happen. On the Oversight Committee, where I serve on the committee, we've been investigating many things. One of the biggest things we're investigating is the Biden family. And here's I keep telling them that this makes everybody mad. You guys always confirm it for me. So we went to the Treasury Department and we spent, I can't even tell you how much time. There's over 2,300 pages of SARS reports. These are suspicious activity reports. So if any of us in this room, if you have a bank account, banks are required to produce reports. If they see illegal activity, suspicious activity reports, or something is questionable transactions, payments to questionable sources, money wire transferred in from questionable places, like foreign countries or foreign entities, and they produce something called a suspicious activity report. We call it a SARS. So the Treasury has over 2,300 pages, this is what we know of SARS reports on the Biden family. That's a lot. Most of you in this room, most of all of us, will never get one of these. But to have 2,300 pages. So we went in there and we've been studying and reading them. Then we took, and let me tell you, they're very detailed. They give names, addresses, passports. They give bank numbers, bank accounts. They're filled with information. So we took the information we got there. Then we subpoenaed bank records. Okay? Can't argue with a bank record. It is a fact. We matched up everybody. There are more than I can even count right this second. Wire transfers into fake LLCs owned by multiple Biden families. And these aren't businesses, they're shell companies. Because the Biden, they don't have a family business to show you. They can't show you, here is our product we sell. Here is our service that we provide. They don't have that. They cannot produce it. Dozens of shell companies. And the bank statements show it. Wire transfer after wire transfer into these shell companies. Payment to Biden family members. Even grandchildren. So why would a grandchild get a payment that came from China that went into an LLC and they got paid out of it? That doesn't make sense. It's very serious. And then we have whistleblowers. You guys, whistleblowers are coming out of the woodwork. We have a very credible whistleblower that came to us, scared for his life. Came to us and told us information about a document that the FBI has had possession of for 7 years. This FD 1023 form. On this form is proof that Joe Biden, as vice president, took payment from a foreign national in exchange for foreign policy decisions. That is a pay-to-play scheme. The form, the FD 1023 form, is in the FBI. They have possession of it. They've had it for 7 years. We subpoenaed it. Christopher Wray refused to hand it over. Now, if it was a classified form, I would actually go, all right, well, maybe this is because it's classified. Guess what? It is unclassified. This form is unclassified. Still won't hand it over.
Lock him up.
Well, we don't have the FBI or the Department of Justice. We have no control, right? And Congress can't lock anybody up.
US
We can
Marshals.
legislate and we can investigate and then again budget and appropriations. That's our duty. I'm getting there. You're so smart. Well, look at your hat. Okay. So we had subpoenaed Christopher Wray. He didn't show up. He told us it's in the American people's national security interest for us to hold this forum. I'm like, really? It must have some serious truth on that form if he thinks he's got to protect the American people, because he's protecting the American people from the truth. We know what's on the form. We know very seriously what's on the form. Christopher Wray is going to be held in contempt of Congress. That's step one. But this is how serious things are. Uh-oh, I think we got a recording going. Maybe they're saying something good. But these are the things that we're investigating and dealing with. This has only been in 5 short months. So Jamie Comer, our chairman on the Oversight Committee, when he talked to Christopher Wray said, well, you can come on down to the FBI and look at the form. And Chairman Comer said, no, you have been subpoenaed. You should show up and bring the form. There's no reason for you to hold the form. This needs to come in here. And that is exactly what they need to do. But these are the things that happen. So in 5 short months, here's what we've done. Remember, we only have 222 argumentative Republicans. We have passed a Parents' Bill of Rights because we believe parents are the ones that should be in charge of their children and their children's education. We have passed a bill to protect women and girls' sports. I think women deserve their privacy in bathrooms. Little girls deserve their privacy in bathrooms. They deserve their sports. They shouldn't have to compete with biological men and biological boys. And it's not hateful towards anyone's sexuality to say that. That's just a fact. That's a fact. It shouldn't even be an argument. We have also passed the strongest border security bill in history. It is amazing. If it was signed into law, we wouldn't have 300 Americans dying every day. And remember, fentanyl does not discriminate. It doesn't care what color you are, what religion, doesn't care about your sexuality, doesn't care that it's Pride Month, doesn't care if you drink Bud Light or shop at Target or whatever you do. Fentanyl will kill you, and it's killing 300 Americans a day. We really want to stop that. We passed an America First energy bill. That is so important. It's so, so important. We should be energy independent now. And we've done many more things, but here's the truth, and I'll tell you this is my frustration. We can't get it all done. We just can't. Again, we barely control 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government. And that's a fact. And that's how the government's set up. It has 3 branches, and it forces us to figure it out at the same time. And so that's what happened this week. And listen, I've talked, and I thank you guys for hanging with me. I do want to take questions, and I think, oh, they brought it out. Okay. And I know you guys want me to get to it, so let's do it. Okay, why did you vote for the bill last night? I think I've got that one covered. ADA regulations enforced in schools and public places. Added teeth or consequences to violations. Does anybody want to expand on that question? No? Oh, hi.
So the issues I faced with my partner and I, this is Delta, over the past year is ridiculous. I know. So she is technically a psychiatric dog, and she alerts to cortisol. That's your stress hormone. So when I get really whacked out, I tend to do stuff to myself or other people, and she's here to intervene. and create either an opening or a way for me to melt down in a safe place. She also happens to help other special ed kids. So she'll alert and go cuddle with the autistic kids that are having a breakdown. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Hey. So we've had a lot of issues just getting into places and having her rights protected, along with mine. Anyways, there's no repercussions to people who violate those said rights, as I volunteer in a local school who have repeatedly fudged said rights for the special ed kids. There have been no repercussions, parents standing up, nothing. We need to find a way to be able to enact those rights and help those that are at risk, especially the young ones and the at-risk vets, especially them.
Well, first of all, you did a great job explaining that.
Yeah.
You did a great job. And tell me your dog's name again. Delta. Delta's beautiful. You guys should see her. She's beautiful. You know what? I think what we can do, where did Tracy go? Where's Tracy? I'm going to have you talk with someone in my constituent office, in our constituent services. So would you like to talk with someone, and then we can start the process to see if we can get you some help? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for explaining that. You did a great job. I'm going to go back all the way over here in my fishbowl. Okay. Why did you vote for a bill that gives the Dems everything and Republicans nothing? Why did you say yes to debt ceiling limit? Explain how it benefits the American people. I think we covered that one. Let's see. Okay. If the country is an additional $4 trillion in debt for 2 years from now, this is a good question. Was your vote to approve still acceptable? Okay, whoever asked this one, great question. It's up to us. And now again, remember, Republicans are in control of the House, so we're in control of appropriations. We don't know if it's going to be $4 trillion. This was my question. That's been the estimate. So we're in charge of actually how much is spent over the next couple of years. That's the key. So the $4 trillion was an estimate based on before we passed the Limit Save Grow Act. And I hope it's not $4 trillion. But again, I'm telling you guys, I'm really excited about Thomas Massey's penny plan. So hopefully we can do a better job in appropriations. Why is it that Republicans are always having to be on the defense all the time with our backs against the wall and having to defend our freedoms? That's a great question. Maybe that question's as old as time. I mean, if you got...
You said you had people in Congress that are far left and like they're Republicans.
Yeah.
They're not. So we call them rhinos.
Right.
That is true.
Well, I also think it's part of maybe humanity. And I'm a Christian, so I read the Bible and I have a faith. And if you study the Bible and really study human history, anytime there's people or groups of people that are just focused on doing the right thing, for some reason, they receive the most attacks. But I will say that that's also something to not worry about. I think it's worth it to do the right thing. I do. I honestly believe it. With your public support of Americans who have fought against injustice by the federal government, will you pressure President Biden to pardon Leonard Peltier, who is terminally ill? Joe Biden doesn't talk to me, you guys. I don't know who all he talks to. He doesn't talk to the press much either. Yeah. Which one? Well, you know, I will say this, like,